All right, now you
All
can
right.
start talking.
Sweet. Well, hey man, super stoked you guys joined us this morning, or wherever, I guess for some of you in the Netherlands and Europe, this evening. Hey, this is Stu and I, for those of you that don't know, both of us, that's Stuart, I'm David. We started a couple different businesses, but what we're most recently been working on and most fired up about is this Storehouse Mastermind. And there's a number of guys in here that are currently members. There's a future member here waiting for us to open the doors to the next house, Lorenzo. Um, but what one of the things that we noticed as we really focused on building this business out is there's a lot of gems that are coming out of the conversations. The conversations, I don't know if everybody's familiar with the mastermind concept, but basically it's effectively tons of masterminds out there. It's peers get together, usually very high performing, very specific goals in mind, that get together and challenge each other to be better, and whatever that is, whether it's real estate, being better men, trapeze artists, whatever. You can find on anything. And for us specifically, it's being better men, being better husbands, being better fathers, being better leaders, being better business owners. And we're very intentional and very specific in our conversations. And what we came to realize is once we click off the call or end an in-person event, there's all these gems, and where we have kind of come full circles, like, man, we just need to share these. And so, 2 weeks ago, we're like, hey, let's start a webinar series. We'll call it the Kinetic Life, and just put it out there, and whoever shows up, shows up. But there's going to be guaranteed value that they're going to get. And that's the intent of this, right? Is just to give you guys some insights into some of the conversations that we're having, and just to add value. Just a quick show of hands. Did you guys all get, so this is the first one. So congratulations, you're on the ground floor of this future uber amazing thing. But so we're working out some of the kinks, but did you guys get an email with a PDF? Has that gone out yet? Did you receive that when you registered?
Might have gone to like your promotions, or it could have gone to your junk or spam.
Yeah. Well, if you didn't, we're going to get you one, but basically we created this PDF, and it's an interactive PDF, and it basically has kind of the paradigm, the framework that we use in the mastermind, but it's very specific to this idea of roles. And so it'll be I think it'll be a great resource for you to walk through, as you're defining your roles and the ones that are important to you. It'll help you to break them down, and then ultimately you get to a spot that you're taking action, and that's really the goal. So if you did not get that, be looking for that. If you get something from Storehouse Mastermind, don't throw it in the trash. There's a PDF resource there that will get you, and I think it's a really good exercise, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So we recently had a call, and we started talking about this idea of roles. And what became very apparent is a lot of us have, we have this idea of what our roles should be. And it almost seems like a basic question, right? Like, what's your role? Wow, I'm a leader. I'm an officer. I'm a man of God. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm a whatever these things that we throw out there. These are our roles. But what we really came to understand is we started challenging each other. Okay, well, what does that mean? First off, have you really taken stock of these roles? Have you really, there's a lot of influences that are telling us it's really important to be a dad, right? Dad is, it's really important to be a husband, and it's really important to be a leader. But that may not be our truth. And until you honestly dig into these roles and ask yourself, ideally in a quiet place, what are my priority roles in my life, until you go through an exercise that forces you to truly define these things, oftentimes what you could find, potentially what I've found and what I've seen in a number of conversations, is there's a good chance that on some of these roles we're lying to ourselves, because we think they're important because somebody told us they're important. And maybe our wife told us, hey, your role as a husband is really important. You to be a leader in this household is a really important thing. And so we internalize that because we love our wife and that's an important person. But maybe, just maybe, that's not something that we truly value, and we've never truly assessed it, defined it, analyzed it, and then ultimately put the discovery of what we've dug into a no kidding actionable steps that made it to our calendar. So we may tell ourselves, I may tell myself, I'm an amazing football player, and I never go to practice, and I never throw a ball, and I never even study the game. Well, am I truly an amazing football player? It sounds cool, but the actions that I do every single day, and that's a very trivial example. When you start relating that to I'm a husband, and you start assessing your role and you start defining what it means, and you start looking at your calendar and you realize that you work 85 hours a week, and the other time maybe you're out playing golf. Well, it leaves very little, nothing against golf, Lau, because I know you're an amazing dad. So, golf, you do it it's scheduled in very intentionally in your calendar. But that's my point, right? You value golf, and it's a great example and it's an inspiration, but it's in your calendar. And you sent me your calendar. Lau's part of the mastermind. He sent us his calendar, and it's built in there because it's important to him. And it's something that he's prioritized, and it's a very intentional activity. And so when we started talking through this whole idea of roles and we went through this exercise for ourselves, I tell you, it was very eye-opening, and it challenged us to, me specifically, to determine what are the priority roles, because you can't be everything for everybody. You have to define these things that are priorities to you and how you believe that you're built, how you're gifted, how you're skilled. But then that's step one. And once you define those roles, to really dig into, okay, what does this actually mean to me? What does it mean to be a dad? What does it mean to be a husband? What does it mean to be a man of God? So, hey, real quick, just come off mute, not a huge group here. Just come off mute. Throw me some roles that you guys, you hear the word roles and the roles that you play. Just throw some roles out here. Let's get it going. Son. Who said that? Lyle. Okay. Lyle. What else?
Provider.
That's a good one. That sparked a really good conversation, and we'll get into that.
Hit on that.
Provider. What else?
And neighbor.
Worker.
Spiritual leader.
It's a good one. I was going to say doctor because the guy that signed off just now, MD was in his name, but he signed off, so he's missing out. What else?
And the basics, right? The brother, the father, the husband.
Yep.
So what about more specifically, like in the role of a husband? What subtask roles of a husband can you think of? That makes sense. So provider was one that I came up with. What are some others?
I got a newborn, so diaper changer.
Diaper changer.
Diaper changer. Yeah, you don't do that right. You're gonna have some blowouts, some leakage. It's not fun.
No.
Landscaper.
Nice.
Confidant.
Confidant. That's good.
Lorenzo, you got something on what'd you say?
Oh, I said handyman.
Handyman.
That's good. Yeah. So, John, do you have something? Sorry, I don't want to cut you off. No. So, as we did the same thing, and the one that really we had a pretty limited amount of time, but the one that completely derailed the conversation in an amazingly beautiful way was provider. And we started digging into that word provider. So what does that mean? And most of us, if we were honest, we couldn't go one why deep into provider. And what I mean by one why deep, when we say something's important to us, I love doing 3 to 5 times asking why. So why is this important? Well, I'm a provider. Why is that important? Well, because I provide stuff. Okay. That's good. You provide stuff. You use the word and the definition. Great. Let's go another deeper. Let's go another level deeper. Why? Why is that role important? And what we really came around to for a couple dudes in the group was the provider wasn't the key. That wasn't the role that, at least for the person that initiated the question, what he concluded was a servant was actually the role as he went deep three deep into his why, it wasn't to provide things and to provide, whatever provide means to you. What he concluded was his role as a provider was to provide comfort, was to provide love, was to provide service, to serve his family. And then it got into this whole dichotomy between providing, the focus of providing is on me, the focus of serving is on others. And so that provided a great that initiated an amazing conversation about what it really means to be that role of a father, of a provider, of a husband, and what we do in the house. And as you continue to carry that down, it ultimately ended up in very specific intentional action items. How can I serve? And where that really truly ended up was, how can I serve in my household to fulfill this role that I have identified, not only as a priority role, but the priorities within that role on the action items that I can do. And that in and of itself was extremely, extremely powerful. And you can see as you ask these questions and you go into these roles that initially you think are going to be priority roles, as you really look into those, not only do you realize, hey man, some of these things I've been telling myself are the roles that I think are important really aren't that important, and they're taking brain capacity and time capacity, and maybe I shouldn't be the administrative lead for my business. Maybe that's not a good role for me, so maybe I get that off my plate. And what are the true priority roles that I want to be fulfilling in my life? And let's dig into those and get them to an action item. And so as we work through that, Stephen just gave the PDF for everybody on here. You can download it from there. But as you work through this exercise, one role at a time, that time is extremely well served for what you're doing. And what you come out of it could potentially be vastly different than when you went into it thinking that your roles were, whether they're in your house, your business, whatever it is.
Yeah. So I wanted to hit on, so this is from one of our mastermind members. His name's James Gray. He's an Air Force helicopter pilot in our first initial house. He's a ROTC instructor at Texas Tech. And I'm just going to kind of read this post out, just his thoughts on just this definition and the role of provider versus a servant. So I think it's really powerful. And I'm just going to read it. This is a post in our forum that we have at our mastermind. He says, "Am I trying to build the life I want at the expense of the life I have? Is it better to provide for our family or to serve our family?" So in the mindset of a provider, it's normally rooted in knowledge and fueled by success and executed through busyness. Success begets success, and it can become a vicious circle as the hard work and the perseverance that is rewarded by success becomes the fuel for the hard work and more success. But serving is rooted in wisdom, and it's fueled by sacrifice, and it's executed through stillness or presence. Providing it's time bound. We think of ways to be more efficient. We try to free up time by habit stacking or, create, better habits, morning routines, etc. And serving is energy bound. And you must be deliberate when channeling your energy when choosing to serve. And so, we've talked about this on our podcast before, Filling the Storehouse, but the number one the number one resource, most people will say time, but we'd argue that it's energy. To use energy and focus there to serve. The outcome, providing versus serving. Providing helps fulfill a narrative. We all have a bias. There could be a narrative you wrote for yourself that society wrote for you, and it could become enabling, as its nature eliminate is basically just more wants, just more. That's what providing does. But serving, it helps fulfill a purpose and eliminates a need, and we are called to seek the needy. Thus, we are called to serve. And in providing, if we're providing, we're trying to show our families what success looks like. And in serving, we're trying to show what success feels like, what truly it feels like to serve, not provide. And so through these conversations, we go deep on different topics. And I don't know if you've ever been to our website, Storehouse 310, and there's a section on our mastermind, and we hit certain topics every single month. And we go through this process called getting real. David, can you explain getting real for us as we dive into the topic of family? And you guys will see it on your PDF.
You'll see it on the PDF. And I wish we would have chosen gangsta, but it's too many letters. So real is what we
getting gangsta,
but that'd be a lot of weeks. That's at least 8 weeks. So what we wanted to do, a lot of times we talk about things, right? We have these meetings and we have these conversations, and it's great and it's beautiful and we're fired up, and then we leave. And then what typically happens?
We do nothing.
Putters out, right? There's not this real sense of follow up, and there's not a framework that we are walked through to get to an action. And so the real, what we came up with was the acronym REAL, and there's 4 letters, 4 weeks in the month. So we typically are doing 1 month per topic. So REAL, and this is a great paradigm to put into place as we're talking about these roles. So REAL is reflect, right? The R is reflect. So I think a great first step for all of us to take when we're talking about these things that are priorities, whether it's a role, whether it's our relationships and how we're trying to get better in our marriages as fathers, as business owners, as real estate agents, whatever it is, as mastermind facilitators, whatever it is that reflect period. You have to spend time. We're too often, especially in today's world, on our phone, and we're scrolling in the Facebook and the feeds and the noise and the garbage and the constant, we're in November. How many of you guys have been getting inundated with these absolute garbage political ads? They're garbage on all sides. It's negative, it's loud, it's malicious. It's just not, we're surrounded by this stuff. So to reflect, you get away from all that noise and you take whatever this thing is and just spend some time with it, right? Spend some time in silence. Turn your phone off. I know that's a crazy novel idea, but just turn it off.
What?
Just for a little bit. And just enjoy the silence of your own thoughts. And even better, varsity level, go for a walk. Get out in the woods, in the mountains, the beach, wherever you're located. There's something outside, I assure you. Just go be in that. And regardless of your faith, whether you're out there praying, meditating, just being outside is a huge advantage. And get quiet and just think and ponder. And I think you'll be shocked. One, you'll find how you best think. And when you free some space up, I think you'll be shocked at how smart each of you really is, which is, for some of us is a stretch, right? But you'll unlock some thoughts and potential that you never knew was there. I promise you, because we did it. And this is not something I've been good at. Smart you really is. So exactly, Lyle, exactly.
Yep.
Maybe Spanish, maybe that'll be a plus for you. But in all joking aside, just to be able to get somewhere, and maybe that's inside for you, I don't know, but to get somewhere and allow yourself thought. And so you reflect, right? And then the E is execute. So you take all those thoughts, and it's great. You put them on paper, however you capture them, record your voice. I know a lot of people that out here in Colorado, a lot of my buddies, they'll go out into the mountains and they'll take a voice recorder. And because that's where they best get their thoughts. And some business owners, and they're out there and they're just like, man, I just record these thoughts as they come into my head. And that's where my best business ideas come from. And it's awesome. Whatever it is that you do to capture these things in your reflection, now we get to execute. That's the E. And we have to do something about it. That's why we execute, right? We get together, we say, okay, this is what we came up with. What are we going to do to tie actions to these things? So in this specific case with the roles, you identify your priority roles. The next thing, hey, let's define these words. No kidding, get a dictionary out and define what this really means and see if this is really something that I want in my life. And you put it on paper, however it is you capture it, but you execute. You do something about it, capture it into a form that you can use. All right. And then the A, account. I'll tell you guys, there's nothing like accountability to pour jet fuel on something that is a priority to you. It's very easy to say, man, I love working out. It's very easy. I say it every day. It's a lot harder. And there's two dudes in this call that I check in on every single day in a habit app, Stu and Lyle, and they know if I worked out. They know if I worked out. They know there's a number of things that I prioritize, right? Getting in the word, drinking water. There's things that I put down on that list, and they know every single day if there's a green box, I did it. And I know if they did it. And I look, in case you guys are wondering, I do look at your stuff every day, right? So I know when you're practicing your Spanish, Lyle. But it's the accountability, and the app, that's great, and it's, you know, a fun tool, but to find a person and to, no kidding, say, hey dude, I love working out. Do you love working out? You do too? Okay, I'll see you at the gym tomorrow at 5 o'clock in the morning. That's accountability, because there's a true consequence to that, right? There's a true consequence to showing up or not showing up, and that accountability will push you to a success rate that's vastly higher than just talking about it. So that's the A, account. And then the L is to live it. So what does that mean? So you've reflected, you spent time thinking on what's important, you executed, you put it on paper, you captured it somewhere, you've dug into those thoughts, you defined words, you've done something about it. You got accountable with somebody to say that this is important, and then you live it. That should be on your calendar. So and when I say you on your calendar, guys, like I take this very seriously. So on my calendar are things like kids time, phone down. That's scheduled on my calendar every single day. Later in the day, snuggle your babies. Like that is on my calendar every single day. Snuggle your babies between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock. And that does a couple things. One, it reminds me that that's time to snuggle my babies, and that's gonna go away quick, right? So it's a good reminder to me that my daughter's not gonna want to snuggle me probably within the next year or so. She'd be like, I'm good. Snuggle time's over, and I'll cry for probably the next year. But I got 2 more babies, so it's fine. But it's a reminder. It's a reminder what's important to me, because it's a priority that I be a dad and I spend time. So that's a practical reminder, right? Every single day, wake up and focus is on my calendar. And in that focus, when I click on it, is a list of verses that I try to live my life by. Time with God is on the calendar. Morning routine with kids is on the calendar. This is my daily calendar. And if we're not putting things in our calendar, we're not doing them. Lyle, like I said, has golf in his calendar. That's huge. What's not on my calendar, what's a glaring thing that's not on my calendar, is PT. So do I really love it? Sounds good, right? Everybody respects that. Oh, you love to work out. Everybody respects it. Sounds great. Am I doing it? So that's what I say when we talk about living it, it's going to the next level. It's putting things in the calendar. It's doing something about it. And it's, no kidding, integrating it into our daily life until it becomes such a strong habit that it's just who we are. It's like breathing. But if it's not making it in your calendar, you need to question it. And I think that's the intensity with which that we should be pursuing things like our roles, right? If we say it's important to be a dad, then there should be things in our calendar that reflect date days with our kids, intentional time with our children, because if it's not in there and it's not conflicting with something else, then that something else will probably win out. Does that make sense? And so I would challenge you guys to take your calendar, no kidding, do this roles exercise, get down there, get deep into what it means. If you say being a son is an important thing to you, and you happen to be blessed enough to live by your family, is Sunday dinner with your mom, your dad, whomever it is that, you being a son or a brother, is that in your calendar? Is it an expectation that every Sunday you're going to do these things? Because if it's not in there, it's a lot easier to ignore. Okay. So that's the paradigm. REAL, reflect, execute, account, and live it.
So we were having this conversation, and one of the guys in our mastermind just asked the question, like, have you defined, your roles, right? And so that's kind of where this all started. And so I'm going to share one of my, I went through this exercise myself. I got up one morning at like 4 a.m. to give myself a little, thinking time, and got out, my notebook here and asked all these same questions. So I'm going to share one example of the role of a husband. I took the role of a husband, and I listed out 3 things that I see as a role for myself as a husband to my bride. So I wrote down friend, I wrote down servant leader, and I wrote down lover. And I'm going to hit on the first topic of friend, because I think it was pretty impactful for me. And I actually just posted this a little bit earlier on LinkedIn and in our Facebook, Filling the Storehouse podcast Facebook group. But if you go into the definition of friend, and I think a lot of people will say that, my spouse is my best friend, right? Well, what does that really mean? Like if so, I just went to the, Googled it and looked up the definition of friend, and the Oxford Dictionary definition of a friend is a person who one knows and whom one has a bond of mutual affection, exclusive of sexual or family relations. So what does that mean? So, again, I kind of took some time to reflect on that. I took some time to think about like my wife and what she needs. And has anybody ever read the 5 Love Languages book? Yeah. If you haven't, highly recommend it. So I started reflecting on that. Like, what does that mean for her to have a mutual affection for me, to truly know me? And I don't know about you guys, but there's probably, I've been married for 14 years to my bride, and there's still a lot of things that I don't know about my wife. Right. And so how can I say that I'm her best friend if I don't like truly, truly deep down know her? Because there's always, things that we can continue to learn about each other. So how do I get to know her better? How do I become a better friend? And we're in this current stage of life where, we have 2 kids. I have a 4-year-old son and a 7-year-old girl. And, I'm, an entrepreneur, so I could be always working if I wanted to, retire from the Navy. My wife also, she works part-time. She has a 1099 job where she's, building out websites and graphic design. And she's like, also like full-time mom. So we're busy, and I'm a morning person, and my wife is a night person. So I'm typically up early. I kind of get my morning routine done in the morning. Try to get some, a PT session in, a workout all before the family gets up. And then the kids get up, and then we're right into the daily routine, getting kids dressed, getting kids ready for, breakfast and school, and sending them to school. And I take my kids to school now. Well, I don't see my wife again until I get home. Typically I pick up the kids, when they get out of school, and then it's dinner time, bath time, all that routine right afterwards. Well, 7:30, 8 o'clock, since I got up at 4 a.m., I'm tired. Right. And a lot of times
you're sleeping in bed at 7:30. Don't even lie. Being a business partner with somebody that goes to bed at 7:30 is a significant challenge. Just throwing that out there. I didn't mean to throw you off your game, but 7:30 max.
8, maybe 9.
Whatever, dude.
So what ends up happening a lot is my wife and I don't talk very much. Right. So how can I say that my wife is my best friend when we rarely even talk? And if we talk, it's about the kids, right? Or it's about our schedule, or it's about, whatever, is next down the line on our calendar, whatever that is, right? We rarely have time to even talk to each other about just life, about getting to know each other, about being best friends. And so, I wrote that down. Like, how do I live to be my wife's best friend, and how can I account for that? So I wrote down, spend time in communication. So I have to actually intentionally figure out a time between my wife and I where there's no distractions, and we can actually sit down together, no computers, no phones, no kids, no nothing, and talk. Like whether that like going for an intentional walk outside by ourselves and talking through subjects, or, her getting up early or me staying up late, whether that is, like we have to find time on our calendar to actually sit down and talk to each other and ask each other questions and talk about other things besides just our kids, right? Or, whatever else is kind of going on administratively in our lives. So that's kind of what we did. We sat down and kind of worked out, like we have a weekly meeting every Sunday. We call it our family meeting, and we sit down and with the calendar in front of us, and we go through our entire week and figure out like who's taking the kids to school, who's picking up kids. But we also now talk about when's our talk time, and we schedule it and we put it on the calendar. When's our talk time? Is it at night on Tuesday after the kids go to bed? Or is she going to get up early one morning? Are we going to go for a walk after we take the kids to school? Friday, we kind of call it our date day. So we drop the kids off at school and then we go to a coffee shop, right? And we talk. And so that we've been married 14 years, guys. And that's never happened, right? Until I went through this exercise and figured out like, man, if we don't like talk to each other about things besides our kids are going to be gone at 18. And then what happens? What happens to my best friend when we have nothing to talk about? And I've stopped like continuing to pursue her and understand her and learn. It like we'll just separate over time. And I saw that happening when I was so focused on my work and providing that I lost focus on being my wife's best friend. So it's a huge, powerful exercise to go through. And that was just one role. That was just one role as a friend to my wife. I went through that same process with servant leader, with lover. You know, lover's a challenging one, right? Like,
but at least it probably didn't take you much time to fill it out.
Right. I just expect sex on a Friday night and we're good to go.
No, I'm
right?
saying never mind. Different perspective.
Oh, gotcha. But yeah, any questions on that? I mean, I'm just curious. What do you guys think? Is there any roles that you could kind of identify in your head? You know, off the top, like where you maybe think you're lacking a little bit, that you want to change and be different?
Well, you know, and going through it, Stu, one thing that, you know, hit me pretty hard is how I dad, you know, specifically when I'm coaching and the patience that I bring and the men in the group challenge me with the roles. Another huge benefit is I could read these roles before I go into whatever hard conversation with my wife, coaching situation, my kids, whatever it may be, and remind myself that, hey, when you're a coach for your kids, like smiling is good. Being positive is a good thing. You know, not emphasizing the winning, but emphasizing the what are the things you emphasize to build these young boys up. I mean, these are like, you know, 6 and 8 year old boys, right? These aren't college men. These are kids, some of whom maybe don't have dads or have a different type of relationship, right? So what kind of role am I showing up? And I think you know, as you highlighted that, Stu, like breaking down, what does it mean to be a lover? And some people will argue, and we've heard this, but, and you made a great point, Stu. Some people argue that's such a, like, that's so checklisty and it's so, you know, it kind of kills it. But as you highlighted, you didn't do this for 14 years before we sat down and actually made it, because we're men, dude. Maybe we're just dumber, right? I don't know. But when we lay it out into these steps, it enables you to be better. And so I love that. I love that you, I don't think you'd actually shared that with me to that level of specificity. So that's awesome. So what do you guys think? What are you have this thing, just has this refined or challenged the things that you, when you heard at the beginning of the conversation, roles, has what popped in your head changed from then to this point? And if so, you know, share.
Don't all jump at once. I'm gonna call on you if you don't come off mute.
Yeah, you're all muted. You probably just forgot to unmute.
Mm-hmm. John, you're on the spot, dude. You're a Storehouse Mastermind member, so you haven't gone through this section yet, but I'm gonna hit you up, call you out. What's going through your mind as a dad? What's a role that you see yourself playing as a dad?
Well, first of all, I love this exercise. It's huge because for all the rest of you guys out there, I purposefully left the military a couple months ago with this intent that I was going to be a better father on the backside, because I was going to have some things at my disposal, time at my disposal, energy at my disposal. And what I'm finding out is it's a struggle just as hard, if not harder, now that my role is less defined. I find myself trying to network more, trying to just hustle more, trying to do things more than I did when I felt like I wasn't the father that I could have been. So I'll just challenge you guys that being content with where you are and the role that you're currently filling, whether that's, and I'm talking purely about business, making time in that role to fill the needs of your family and your kids and to find their needs and meet those needs can be done right where you're at. You don't need to jump and change to a new state, a new job, a new occupation, a new whatever. If you can't do it when you're employed currently in the position you've probably been in for a couple of years or you're established, it's going to be a lot harder to do it someplace else. So make the time and really be intentional about what role you're trying to fill. So for me, it was being present with my kids. And so I did kind of what David did and what Lyle talked about is I put some time on the calendar every day. But what I found is I wasn't hitting that hour mark. But man, and I walked away kind of discouraged thinking I'm never going to hit an hour with my kids on a daily basis. But I was encouraged by these guys, by Stu and Dave and Lyle and Steven in the mastermind that they said, hey, just shift that a little bit. You're not making an hour. Let's go down to 45 minutes or 30 minutes or 15 minutes. Take a little bite size and get that thing accomplished and then grow from there. And man, I'll tell you what, I tried for an hour and I missed. I hit 15 minutes and then I hit 30 minutes. 30 minutes is way more impactful than an hour missed. So
that's a good word, man.
I challenge you guys in that because I had a thought that this was all going to fall into place when I left active duty, and now that I'm gone, I'm having to reinvent those roles and find the time to appropriate towards those goals.
Yeah, and you said one thing that well, you said a bunch of things that were awesome, but I think it's interesting because Stu and I joked, we're like, man, when we get out of the Navy, when then, right? This when then thinking, when we get out of the Navy, we're gonna have all this time. But at least I thank God we had the wherewithal to say, you know what, dude, I think what's gonna happen is that when we get out, we're gonna fill our time. We're gonna fill it with whatever business idea that we don't even know we're gonna have yet. It's gonna come and we're gonna be right back to where we started from a time perspective, if not worse being, just more time. And so I think, and John, I wish I would have done this before I got out, because I think when you identify the time and the roles before a significant transition, it gives you a baseline that you can always reference. You can go back to and say, nope, this is a priority and this is not. And especially in a significant transition period, which we're all going to face, whether it's, whatever it is, leaving the military or some other thing, as we do that, to have that baseline, and even better, if we set it up right and we have an accountability partner to talk to or a group to talk to and be like, hey guys, I'm really struggling. And then they can feed into that and it really gets you back to that place that you want to be because it's a priority. It's important. And I'll tell you, it's interesting because when we started doing this, we realized many of us, myself included, have never put the rigor into the things that we say are a priority, which is a very interesting thing. We've never actually defined, thought deeply about, and put action towards the things that we say are most important to us. We just say they're really important things. And it just was a very interesting revelation for me and life-changing to then dig into it, like John said, right? And John's killing it. He's an inspiration. But a lot of guys also don't realize, when you don't assess it and you're not intentional, how much they're truly positively impacting their family, or negatively, I guess, but positively. And then they can celebrate that. We have another mastermind, Stu's cousin, actually, another member. He was beating himself up. And in reality, we're like, dude, you're being a phenomenal dad. And it changed everything, right? Because of the intentionality of spending time digging into it and assessing.
And what's the
I know.
go ahead, Steven.
I was gonna say, I know that like I'm a fairly newly married guy. We got married in 2018, so we're 4 years in. We have a 2-year-old, so sort of new-ish to being married and new-ish to being a dad. And like thinking about, hey, like what's my role as a husband and a father? Like I think the what's my role as a father is something that I've been percolating on for a while. Like that one I think naturally comes with having a kid and they start to grow up and you're thinking about like, okay, how are we going to do discipline and that kind of thing? But the part of it, like a role as a husband, when we started going through this and like even just like me creating the worksheet and stuff, I was like, man, I don't know. Like I am headed down a path of being a really excellent roommate and co-parent. You know, like that is like what I am. And I think that my wife and I would both say like, oh, we have a great marriage. Like we love it. We enjoy each other's time. Like, you know, we're intimate. We spend a lot of time together, but I think that like the direction that the ship is pointed is effective roommate and co-parent. And I don't, you know, that hit me. It's like, man, I don't know. Like I'm a pretty good provider, but I'm not sure if that's what my wife would ask. And that's something else too that we haven't really brought up. And this is like, you know, thinking about your roles in these important relationships, like how would you define them, and what would the other side of that relationship ask of you, right? Like I do not think that my wife wants provider to be in the top 3, to tell you the honest truth.
Yeah.
But that's definitely where I spend most of my time. So it's been really good for me just thinking about this. Like, man, I need to define some things that I do for my wife, like how I am a part of this relationship, and then like what do I do on a daily basis to engage in those roles, because I'm not doing it right now.
Well, I would
And that's
say
varsity level, right? Go ahead,
Yeah.
Stu.
I would say that most men would probably say that provider is their top role that they would play. If just, you know, first thought comes to mind, like someone said it on here, right? And I said it when I first wrote it down, provider. But yeah, if you ask your wife what she sees your roles as a husband are, provider might not be there, you know. So the other thing I was going to say
I'm
is
personally looking for a sugar mama, so
right.
I mean, and then I could just put that one out of the top 5 even.
Maybe someday. Maybe someday.
Maybe someday. Maybe someday. I mean, it's the same wife, so I don't know. We have a conversation, but again,
hey, she's
right?
an entrepreneur. Yeah.
Hey, she is. So I need to get that. I need to light that fire. But I think, and Stephen hit a great point that we didn't talk about, is that varsity level. You know, you want to get really introspective. You know, you do your self-assessment, then you give that list to your, or not that list, you give that sheet to your wife and say, hey, what do you think about me? You know, how would you fill this out? And I think why that's next level in a relationship is because now you can start to build, you know, you want to be more than a roommate, right? I want to be more than a roommate. I desire to have a thriving, amazing relationship. But the problem with that is I have an idea what that looks like. And it may be vastly different than the idea that my wife has. And when those come into conflict, it sets you back a little bit, despite how strongly you want to be the best in that role that you defined. At least to be informed by what the other side wants is a pretty special thing, right? And so we posted about asking your kids, hey, how can I be a better dad? That's a good question. And make sure you got some thick skin. If your kids are really honest and they're young,
yeah,
you better get your thick skin on, because they're going to tell you. And if you truly desire to be better for your kids, then their input and their opinion must have a place in your effort. Go back to work. It's awesome.
you're at home too much now. That's funny.
So we're at the 10-minute mark. What do you guys think? Is this valuable? Is this value add? Is this causing you to, you know, question some things, or at least wanting to take some action, inspire some action to grow, to be better? What do you think?
For sure, it's motivated me to ask my wife what she thinks my roles are in this relationship. You know, because maybe I think we have a good marriage because I provide well. But like y'all said, maybe that's not what she's looking for. Maybe she's looking for someone that hangs out with her and talks to her about whatever, you know, whatever she's got going on and things like that. A friend.
That's good.
That's good, man. And you know, we hit on a lot, just the husband role, the father role, but I mean, you can do this for anything. Like, you know, David was a flag football coach. I was a soccer coach. Like, what's your role as a coach? You know, what's your role as a son? You know, I've been thinking about that a lot. I just recently moved my my mom and my 96-year-old grandfather from Texas to Colorado. I drove a huge 26 foot Penske truck with all of their crap from Texas to Colorado, and I like was scared for my life a few times going over some mountains driving that Penske truck. But like, you know, in frustrations of moving and cleaning and all the crap and like all that stuff, I was just like, what's my role as a son? You know, like, am I serving my mother and my 96-year-old grandfather? You know, so there's some really impactful stuff here. You know, we highly recommend going through this exercise. You have the PDF now, the exercise itself. Go through that, take some time, sit down, you know, put some time on the calendar to, you know, think through this, get up early if you have to, stay up late, you know, whichever direction you want to go. But it's been pretty impactful for my life and a lot of the other guys that are currently in the Storehouse Mastermind that have gone through this, like Steven said, like John said. Yeah. David, you got anything else?
Hey, last one. I'll give you a role to explore because I think we as men kind of fail in this area, and it's been life-changing for me is as a friend. You know, have you considered the last time you hung out with friends, right? When's the last time you did something to build your energy back? When's the last time you went for a hike with your boys, spent a weekend with your boys? Not talking, you know, not drinking beer and whatever, but like talking about important stuff, how much you love them, how much you care about them. Are you confident enough to put that on your calendar to reach out to someone and be like, hey, I love you, dude. Like, I really do. You've made a huge impact in my life. Because a lot of us forget to do that as men. And then as we get older, especially at our age now, this middle kind of getting towards middle age, you look around, you're like, dude, I don't know if I have any friends, right? A lot of guys that we're getting that, we're seeing that in the mastermind are like, man, I don't know. You know, Steven, we laugh about it. We're like, Steven, when's the last time you hung out with your boys? And this was before, you know, we were hanging out. And he said,
2012.
No, he said it was my bachelor party.
2018, my bachelor party.
Yeah, right before I got married. You're like, man, we got to hang out. Let's hang out. So, oh, hey, I meant to give you guys this earlier. Great resource. Can you see it? This background's killing it. This is called The Family Board Meeting. The Family Board Meeting. Super quick book, super quick read, very impactful, and it gives a very actionable, practical way to spend time with your. It's built towards kids because when you realize you got 18 summers with your kids. And then that's like 90% of the time you get spent with your kids is gone for the rest of their lives, right? So you have 18 summers, but also a great exercise with your wife or your significant other to be able to have some intentional time. It's a great book. So The Family Board Meeting, really good resource.
All right. Last thing this is the shameless plug. You know, we've been talking about this mastermind a whole lot. We are starting up another group. We call them houses. We have 2 houses currently going, 10 to 15 people. We're starting the next one pretty soon. As soon as we have the minimum number of members to sign up. I know I've talked to a few of you guys about it. You know, Drew and Satish, I know Lorenzo's already signed up. Britt and Julian, haven't talked to you yet about it, but hey, if this is a conversation that interests you, like we have these weekly, and we have these weekly on all the subjects that we feel are important. And I'm going to share my screen real fast just to kind of show you the conversations that were happening. This is on storehouse310.com/mastermind. And this is what we call the Kinetic Life Circle. So we're having conversations, those intentional conversations, 4 weeks long, getting the real acronym going on every single one of these themes. We're talking about family. We're talking about friends, fun, health, finance, purpose, giving, romance, mindset, and faith. We're on romance right now in the OG house, and it's intense. Men don't like to talk about romance a whole lot, but there's some fun conversations going on there. So if you are interested, if you would like to talk to us, reach out to us. You can reach out to us on however you heard about us. LinkedIn, Facebook. You can go to the mastermind. If you're interested, we're taking applications. You just hit this big join now button, and that secures your spot to join the next house. We're hoping to start that. We'd like to start it in November. If we don't have enough people yet, we'll push it to December. But we're looking for amazing men to join us to have these type of conversations.
And I'm sorry, is it Julian or Julian? I see Castillo after it, my mind automatically goes to Julian.
It's Julian.
My bad.
No, it's all good. It's either or.
This probably happens quite often.
Well, I'm everybody's David, but my family David. So
David.
I'm right there with you, man. All right,
guys,
boys.
Thanks for joining us. Hope this was
first ever Kinetic Living webinar. You guys are you're the foundation.
All right, we'll stop recording. Thanks guys for showing up.
Yeah.